Hello, my name is Dustin Henderson and I'm here today to talk about furniture construction. Have you ever looked at a large piece of furniture with no visible nails or screws and wondered what are holding all those pieces together? I've been making furniture for about 5 years now, and for the past 2 years I've been studying period furniture and restoring period furniture. And one thing that I've learned is that one of the strongest and most fascinating joints is the dovetail joint. The dovetail joint is a joint that is basically tapered pieces that are cut out and inset into another piece that interlock like your fingers interlock. The first dovetails that were discovered, the earliest dovetails, were on an Egyptian tomb. The Egyptian tomb was dated to be at about 1900 BC. Making dovetails at least 4,000 years old. Dovetails today have been kind of tossed to the wayside as it's kind of time consuming to make dovetails, especially by hand. It can be very time consuming. It can take up to, for a very experienced person, it'll probably take 20 minutes to cut one corner of 4 dovetails. But typically when they make it in factory furniture, it's made with routers and different machines. But the router dovetails are not as strong as hand-cut dovetails because the bases of the dovetail where they inset are round because of the router bit that spins instead of being flat, making them not as strong. And also, router bit dovetails are usually not as tight as hand-cut dovetails. So what makes dovetails so great? Dovetails cannot be pulled apart in any direction other than the direction they come together. And before they're even glued together, dovetails, if you just put them together with no glue, as you see like on these are not glued together, but they're really strong. It's because they can only go in one way and they cannot come out. They cannot be pulled out this way, like when you yank a drawer, it can't pull it out. So when you put them together, they're already strong, but when you glue them together, they cannot come apart unless you literally break the tails and break this end grain off right here. So that's what makes them so strong. And typically in woodworking, what makes joints strong is when you can put a joint together and it's strong before you even add glue or anything else. So on how to cut dovetails, the first thing you have to do is mark your stopping point. Your stopping point can be marked with a marking gauge such as this right here. With this disc on the end, you put it on there and you mark the line. Another thing, the way you can mark your stopping point is with a combination square. So you mark that so you know where to stop when you cut, and you also know where to chisel when you go down into here, into these different areas. These are called the pins and these are called the tails. Okay, to mark your tails with, you're going to need an angling tool like this, and you just put it up against the tails just like this and mark them, and that just tells you where to cut. And you also are going to mark square angles across the top so you cut them square when they go in. So after you've cut the tails using a dovetail saw, which is a very fine-tooth saw with a spine to hold it straight, after you cut those, you're going to want to take the waste out of these pins. So what you're going to be looking at is you're going to want this right here. So to get the waste out of these pins right here, you're going to use a chisel, such as this, and you're going to chop down, and as you chop, you're going to chop in like this, and then you're going to flip it over and continue to chop until you get a perfectly square end on the bottom of these. And then for these angles, you can either cut them with a saw, or you can also chisel these angles. These are called the shoulders on the ends right here. So after you've got this right here, you're going to want to take it to a mating piece like this, and you're going to take probably a knife, a little small, like a kitchen knife that you've ground down to straight, or an X-Acto knife or a razor blade, and you're going to razor blade around those spots that mark your tails, so then you get your ends like this. So once you've got the ends, you're going to mark square lines coming down, and you also have your score line at the bottom. So then you're going to cut those down, and after you've cut those, you're also going to chisel down perfectly flat. And then after you've got that, you test your fit, and you can chamfer in some of these angles on these, so then you can put your tails together. just like that. All right, and where can dovetails be used? You can see, well, typically they're used in drawers. That's where you typically would see them, is in drawers such as this chest. This is an 1815 chest with hand-cut dovetails, which makes it 200 years old and is still together. And then it can also be used in different boxes and stuff like this right here. And also on this chest, the top of this chest, it has an applied molding. This is applied and this is applied. This top is veneered. The sides of this chest is also dovetailed together and then veneered over the dovetails. So that's another place you can use dovetails. And here's a large chest that the sides are dovetailed together, the carcass is. And then it's also around to the back of the back legs are flat instead of have a profile on it like the front legs. So that's another way that dovetails can be used. And that's pretty much it.